pick up with questions that were Twittered in. There are not very many of those, so we'll go very quickly into audience questions. I hope you all have been taking notes and are prepared to ask questions of our candidates. When it comes time to ask audience questions, I'm going to ask everybody to line up over here. So when it comes time for audience questions, you'll come up and line up right here, and then one at a time you can step forward and ask your question. I'm going to ask that everyone please make sure that you try to ask questions that every single candidate can answer. Asking targeted questions is not very nice and not very fair for everybody. We want to make sure everyone has an equal opportunity to answer every question. So any questions about how the questions will work? All right, cool. And once again, please do not line up until I say it is time. Sound good? Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we are going to start back up with the order that we were going in when we left off. So that means that this first Twitter question will be answered by Annika first.
Yeah, buddy.
So, first question, pardon me. Can there be more activities on South Campus? Red Square gets all the love.
That's a good question. I do believe that we do not make use of that space quite enough. I mean, Red Square is kind of crowded so much that people tend to look down and, you know, just almost avoid going through Red Square because a big hassle by people like us trying to get you to vote. And if anyone was on campus today, they would have seen my mother and my Aunt Marla in that very section of South Campus that is not utilized enough. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Morgan. Yes, definitely. South Campus should be utilized as well. To kind of talk about one event that was in South Campus, Lawn Stock, if you all remember that last year. So I think kind of promoting that space and using that space more effectively. And you know, Fairhaven, that's considered South Campus, so we have a number of programs that happen in Fairhaven, but utilizing that walkway because students will pass through and they don't really have a lot to look at, and if there's something to interact with or to participate in, or you know, create a constructive dialogue, a little talking session, I don't know, something fun, that will kind of interact all sides of the campus, because a lot of times for certain majors you'll be in certain areas of the campus, and I think opening that door and creating services and programs all around campus would be beneficial. Would you like me to repeat the question?
So for me, I think this question plays a lot into a couple of things that the VPs for activities brought up last night, and that's the lack of attendance for events on campus. So I think that it would be important to collaborate with the Vice President for Activities next year to make sure that there's accessible locations for all students. So having more events in that area on campus, in Academic West, in the Common would be more accessible for students that live on South Campus. And just making sure that we are providing programming to all students, and if we need to move locations, then we need to move locations because we need to provide programming in a place where students will come to that programming.
Thank you. The next one, I've altered the language of slightly. No, that's not what you think. Only for the sake of I'm moving on. The next question will be answered by Morgan first. Morgan, what is your position on the current smoking referendum?
Haha, I knew this question was going to come. I actually had this question today. My position, I think, does not necessarily matter. I think it's the whole point of the referendum is to gauge student opinion and you know, get people to interact and have a voice. So it's kind of creating an outlet for students to voice their concerns, what their beliefs are, and so my perspective doesn't necessarily matter. The only thing that matters is that what students want is happening. So if students want a smoke-free campus, then that's what we'll do, and we'll advocate for that. If students don't want that, then we can bring that information to the administrators and represent student voice so they can make policies and create a safe space for all people to interact and feel safe and be productive in this higher education experience that we have.
Next is Josie. Would you like me to repeat the question?
What is your position on the current smoking referendum?
So, kind of like Morgan mentioned, it doesn't necessarily matter what I think because I'm here to represent you. That being said, I think that there is definitely some more effort that could be made towards creating more visible places for students that smoke on campus to be, and making sure that those locations are not necessarily next to pathways, making sure they're out of the way, because there are students on campus that have asthma, other abilities and other things like that that would play into smoking on campus. Cindy Monger, who works in the board office, actually has spoken a lot about how smoking on campus definitely affects her ability to get from point A to point B. So we need to make sure that when we're looking at this, obviously what the students say is what I'm going to represent. But because it asks for my personal opinion, I think that maybe smoke-free isn't the best way for our campus to be, but making sure that the locations that students that smoke on campus are in locations that are out of the way for other students. So making sure that our campus is fair and accessible for everyone.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What is your position on the current smoking referendum?
Sure, I think it's great that that a student and one of our own has come to run this referendum, and we have put it on the ballot as a board. So I think that's fantastic to see a subject that somebody is so passionate about, and on the other hand, it will be very interesting to see how students vote on this. And with that being said, my position is a student's position. So whatever comes out to be the results after May 2nd is my position. And I also want to reiterate what I said earlier, that this is not only a personal issue, it's not only a political issue, this is an environmental issue. Smoking is not only harmful for the air, but it's harmful for wherever our butts go, or also our cigarette butts go, are not also in whenever, I know, I'm doing fantastic today, aren't I? I have an issue with where our smoking poles are. Are they in places that students are actually smoking? Are they even 25 feet away from the buildings that clearly are labeled "Do not smoke here"? So, also with that being said, students obviously smoke on this campus. So I'm also with our smokers, if you will, saying that there needs to, if not smoking on campus, then there needs to be a designated place close to campus where people can smoke safely and not feel like getting the stink eye from a bunch of people, because that's uncomfortable. So, again, this is a personal issue, a political issue, and an environmental issue. Thank you.
Thank you. So the majority of our Twitter questions get a bit repetitive, and I want to make sure that we keep everything that we're talking about relevant for people. So with that said, I'm going to open up audience questions. Please queue on this side of the room if you have something you would like to ask our candidates. I'll give you a moment to do that.
Heck yeah.
All right. All right, so when you step forward to ask a question, I'll ask you to introduce yourself. Please state your name and your major, and then go ahead and ask your question. As a reminder, please make sure that our questions are answerable by all candidates, and we will be continuing with the same rotation for answering. So that's another reason why it's really important to make sure all candidates can answer your questions. Go ahead.
So my name is Lily Jaquith. I'm a journalism major, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'm the Vice President of Communication with the Washington Student Association, which my question revolves around. The President has a prominent position on the Washington Student Association Board of Directors. How do you plan to use that position to further collaborations with other schools in legislative issues?
Josie will be answering that question first. Go ahead.
Fantastic, thank you. So I've actually been very involved with the Washington Student Association this year. I've attended only 1 or 2 less meetings than Carly, our current president. And actually I've done a lot of work with the Washington Student Association. I've created proposals for 2 of their legislative agendas now for this year and for next year's legislative agenda. And worked a lot with other students. I'm very familiar with people that are running on other campuses and familiar with who I could potentially be working with there next year. That being said, a big issue for me is who votes at the Washington Student Association meeting, and that's something that I'd definitely like to talk to the VP for Governmental Affairs about next year, because as I've mentioned before, it's really, really important that we're trusting our VPs and knowing when to step forward or step back when you have more experience or less experience with things on campus. So it would definitely be a conversation that I have next year with the VP for Governmental Affairs about who would have the vote at the Washington Student Association meetings and who has more experience with the organization and who is more capable at representing our students in the best way that they possibly can, so that our students are represented in the best light, and whoever needs to have that vote to do that.
Go ahead.
Lily?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Journalism. Anyway, I wanted to also say again what I said before about seeing the same people in an organization year after year. Is our ability to improve and change drastically is limited in my opinion. Also, I know that WWU has taken an active leadership role in I won't say basically running WSA meetings, but we've taken okay, so we basically run WSA meetings, if can be so bold. But and I think that going along with that, I think it may be time to pass that leadership role onto another school and see what we can learn from them collaboratively, and see, because it's it's an exchange, it's a learning experience, it's a 2-way, 3-way, 5-way, 6-way street, however many, 11-way street. And also, these accomplishments that our vice presidents have made in the Washington Student Association and in all facets of our accomplishments on campus should not be solely attributed to the vice presidents, as our accomplishments should also be accredited to Carly as well. So I want to thank her for that.
Okay, so I've gone to one meeting and it was super fun. Had a great time at WSA. At my first meeting, I was nominated for the VP of Finance based on my experience as VP for Business and Operations. I had a great time there. I think the important thing in this setting is to, again, work collaboratively with the VP for Governmental Affairs, because they are the specialist in that area, and they have more of a framework to work from, and trusting their voice and their feedback to make well-educated decisions. I think I want to represent all student needs, so the needs from my university, but then also all Washington student needs, because this is a collaborative group, and when you have a lot of different leaders with different opinions and they're working from different lifestyles or social identities or whatever it may be, there's sometimes conflicting opinions or sometimes little issues or conflicts, but I think understanding that we're all having the same common theme and the same common goal, that we want to meet the needs of all of our students and create a safe space to advocate for their needs at a higher level. So utilizing all of those resources, and then also collaborating with all the other presidents and VP for Governmental Affairs, and we have a Western Votes representative, and so working together as one strong front to meet the needs of all of our students in Washington State.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lily.
Thank you, candidates.
Hi, my name is Sarah King, and my major is Human Services. My question, with a little bit of description before. Your role as AS President is to hear the voices of students in order to represent them accurately. The challenge with the AS has been accessing all students on campus, and that's been a problem for many years. And I'm not sure if it's been since the beginning of the AS, but it's definitely been a problem in recent years, especially first and second year students. What strategies do you see as most effective to reach those students?
And Annika will be answering this question first.
Sure. Well, the first thing that strikes me, of course, like I mentioned earlier, is our transparency and positive relationships with our student publications that have as much as 60 to 70% circulation rates on this campus and off campus as well. So making sure that students have the not only the opportunity to hear what we have been doing, but also to respond to that in the form of editorials, in the form of writing other stories that are bringing to light what we're doing in this campus. in my opinion, journalism is like one of the foundations of democracy. Another thing that we can do here on this campus is have more free speech boards. We have one up there in the Viking Union upstairs, in a place that I never walk by. I don't know about everyone else, but if we had more boards like that for people to simply write down what we have to say or what we want to see, it's anonymous and it's safe and it's visible for everyone to see. So if we could have more free speech boards like that, I think that we could have a better avenue for students to voice their opinions directly to us. And because it's intimidating to walk into the board of directors office if you've never been there before. It says the lights are on, come on in, but maybe there's no really anyone in there. But so if we had a board, a free speech board, then we would be able to hear those loudly and visibly. Thank you.
Can you restate your question, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll try to read it verbatim now. Your role as AS president is to hear the voices of students in order to represent them accurately. The challenge the AS has had for years is that it reaches a limited population of students, especially first and second year students. What strategies do you see as most effective to reach those students?
I think understanding where they're coming from, because we all were first year, second year students, and so we have the ability to connect with those individuals. And so kind of meeting them on their